Thank you. Hello, everyone. The name is Arun Rao. I'm an airport engineer with a master's degree. I have over 47 years of experience totally, in which 15 years were in India with the International Airports Authority of India, wherein I worked for 13 years as the chief of the aerodromes and grounded section, responsible for Annex 14 to the Chicago Convention. We just barely make it for the 2B visual. If it is 2B instrument runway, approach surfaces and the takeoff climb surfaces are likely to be penetrated by the obstacles. The location of the runway being further to the east as it is, and then we have very little margin of space beyond the edge of the runway itself to have the runway strip, which is mandatorily required in Annex 14. Every runway must have a runway safety zone around it, or it's called a runway strip. It doesn't meet the requirements. So strip requirements is not met. Therefore, the transitional surfaces that emanate from the edge of the strip away at a particular slope are also not going to be honored, or I will put the other way around, they're all going to be penetrated or violated. This is a non-conformance with the Annex 14 requirements. We cannot control is the weather phenomena, aircraft coming in for landing in case of some engine malfunction, in which case he has no control with regard to his altitude at which he will be flying, too close for comfort, either for the railroad and it's the power lines or the highway with a vehicle on top of it.
Ein Shemer, which is very close, about 3 kilometers from the Hadera airport option.
Yes.
And the runway, as you have seen, the runway's orientation is with the conflict to the Hadera airport. What do you think about it?
It is a serious conflict that needs to be resolved first, because that military airfield, being an existing one, has been designed, let's say, for quite some time ago, and they must have taken into account the weather pattern and therefore the wind directions and velocities to be able to make sure that the runway is usable what we call 95% of the time the airfield is open. So if that is correct, this orientation for the Hadera airport seems to be incorrect. Like in all countries, military takes priority, so they will be able to operate. Hadera will not be permitted to operate if military activities are in full swing at the nearby airfield. So the orientation is a big issue in terms of safety and capacity both.
And we came into a conclusion that 2BI is not doable, which means apparently when we're talking about category 3, which is about 1,800 meters, definitely it's not an option for this case. What do you think about it?
Sure. Definitely, it's not an option at all. It will be not unreasonable to assume that you will start trying to find out whether you can extend the runway a bit. The moment you extend the runway beyond 1,200 meters, you are violating, again, the approach, takeoff, climb surfaces straight away. Essentially, future growth is completely ruled out.
You have dozens of years of experience. Have you ever seen a railroad that is crossing the slope so close?
No, I have not seen anything that is so close at all. It's floating in for a landing, and the wind can easily drift it. That's the reason the railroad also could be an issue, because of the fact that there can be an air pocket at that point in where the aircraft can dip down a bit, and you have a serious issue. So we generally recommend, should there be something, you need to provide sufficient safety margins far away and add an additional safety factor. Remember, you are taking a decision to operate an airport which will be used by somebody who may not necessarily know what is the thin margin of safety that you are providing. You have a very thin margin of safety available between the limits that you are working on.
Authorities would consider to downgrade Hadera airport, which is currently 2BI, and maybe they will consider to make it 2BV. It may be a fit from theoretically, but what do you think about such an airport that would be squeezed in a way into this area?
2BV approach surfaces would clear the obstacles in the north and the south, but you will not meet the requirement for the runway strip. Essentially, therefore, even as a 2BV with the current location shown, it's not doable at all. So I think you're not complying with the obstacle clearance requirements in Annex 14. Current location, it's got very serious flaws.
Mm-hmm. Recommended practices are only a recommendation. We don't need to be in compliance with recommendation. Is that true?
No. We do not distinguish between the two, except the fact that we in recommend practice, we give you time to implement a safety recommendation.